On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, stop carrying the SIG P320. How much ammo was in that van? I was born with 2 vaginas and the best mugshot hair of 2025. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is episode 369 of the John1911 Podcast, and I'm going to crack open a cold one here. Hopefully it doesn't blow out the microphone. It may have blown it out. Unfortunately, that was a sparkling water because I don't drink alcohol. That's for you, Kraken, making fun of me and my sparkling water. What is today? It is Tuesday, April 22nd at 10:22 p.m. And we're trying to get back onto a normal schedule. Some of you have probably noticed that we are starting to publish content on a regular basis. And I'm trying to get the podcast out on a more regular basis as well. You'll see things really picking up over the next couple of weeks, even though I'm going to be extremely busy. Extremely busy is normal. It's just the range construction is over, so that was really affecting a lot of the content schedule. So I guess let's see where to start. The first thing is, I guess, going on around at John1911 is we have finished the construction of a new actual armory, secured facility. This is the third one now that I've built since 2019. So great. I think since 2019, and it is what it is. So I'm certainly glad that I've got a lot of this finished before everything's supposed to get more expensive with all the trade wars. I don't know how expensive cement, or I can never remember if it's cement or concrete. The liquid, is the liquid stuff that turns hard. I don't know which one comes first, but I don't know if that's going to be more expensive or not. But we've got that done. We've been installing rack systems. We typically use not typically, it's what we use is the Secure-It system. The Secure-It system, which is, I call it a high density rack system. I don't want to, rehash all this. The regulars, you've seen it all and you've heard it all. If you want to see pictures of it, we've had to buy some more. No, Secure-It doesn't know us from Adam. We don't get any discounts we don't have any relationship with them at all. I don't even think they know we exist. All I really know about them is they are in New York and they have a NSN number because I've seen their stuff at military facilities, which is really where I first saw it. So you're going to see some of that, but we're still going through some of the inventory. Like, we have to do like an inventory control. We have to do we can do a count, I guess, but we've always got more guns coming in. We have to match up the actual stuff in the armory to the stuff that's in the computer. And, it's obviously, if anything's missing, it's going to be a problem. Knock on wood, nothing is missing. I'm not going to say that it has been, 100% perfect. I discovered today a gun that is missing. The only reason I know it's missing is because of the color. I assumed it was at the other armory. I'm not gonna go into the details of it, but I think it's in. We'll find it. I'll find it in the next day or two. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with kind of what's been going on. If you haven't been following social media and seeing what we've been posting, where have we been? Why haven't we been doing a lot of podcasts? That's why. How come I am by myself? I don't have Danny or Kraken. Well, unfortunately, we are in the baseball umpire season, and Danny is in full swing. I think he had a doubleheader today, and once he's done with that, and me doing a pod this late, he's destroyed. So if I'm going to catch Danny, I got to catch him early. I'd like to do podcasts early generally. I don't like to do them late, but, with the schedule, the way things are going right now, couldn't do that. Kraken has, I don't know if he's officially left his other, I guess he has, left his other company and Kraken's going back to school. I did clear it with him that we could discuss this. He is, it's it's I don't know what the technical name of it, but he's getting certified on how to service like the same kind of small engines that are in UTVs. I don't know if it's there's maybe some Kubota or Kawasaki engines, but these engines that you see in all these UTVs, he's kind of specializing in that, and he's been setting up his shop and going through the the certification process, and that's been very busy for him as well. I believe he told me that I can pretty much count on him to be able to do podcasts on Thursdays. So we'll definitely hold off on that. I'm anxious to talk to Kraken because I recently ran into his favorite waitress when he was in town, that I would like to discuss it with him. So that'll be fun. So you'll be hearing more from the boys and doing all that. So that's kind of where we're at, where everybody's at. We'll be doing more podcasts, on a more regular basis. My goal is to do 2 a week. Sometimes I don't know if I'll do 2 a week if it's just me solo. But we're just going to play it by ear a little bit, but just give you the goal as to where we're at. So, well, with the construction kind of coming to an end, I got to get back up to speed with the range stuff, the regular things that are going on. So today we did our first actual cutting of grass with the tractor and the bush hog at the John1911 range. We just cut a little bit around the pit, just to kind of make it so it doesn't, get too tall. And we also started putting down some of the tick stuff. The ticks were so bad last year that we had to start finally, putting tick stuff down. And I have no reason to believe that the ticks are going to be any better this year. It was a pretty rough winter, and I would like to think that, with the heavy snows and the cold and all that, killed off a lot of those ticks. But I'm not even going to risk having the ticks kind of already swamp us the way they did last year. So I've already kind of started knocking them back, and I'm using a little hand spreader right now. But the goal is, I've already spoken to the Massey dealer, and they said that they didn't sell this, but you can buy a broadcast spreader and hook them up to a 3-point. Well, these things are so inexpensive that our Massey dealer doesn't even sell this. They're just like, go to Tractor Supply and buy one. And so I can buy one of these, and we'll just buy multiple 50-pound bags of this tick stuff, and we'll just broadcast it. We'll put it, all in our front fields. We'll pull it around the range barn, and we'll put it in the pit and the shooting positions. I'll probably broadcast around the steel targets. I don't know how much stuff I want to buy, but that's going to be coming up fairly soon, because you're driving out there administering targets. People, if you're shooting on paper and you're at distance and you're wanting to measure stuff, people walking around. So there's no reason, if we're going to be knocking back the ticks and dealing with ticks on the John1911 range, and we've got all this equipment, for $600, I can just buy a spreader and just knock the hell out of these ticks, in the impact zones as well. I'm not going to try to, do the entire property. I'm not going to go down to the woods or do the trails and all that, but I can definitely do the impact zones and the high traffic areas where people are walking. So, people don't catch the tick cooties, or heaven forbid, like you get allergic to, eating red meat. That would just be that. That would be like a death sentence for some of us. Well, speaking of ticks and speaking of being outdoors, as I'm recording this, it's not up yet, but, I had made an announcement that we have a new contributor coming on board, Jeff, who is going to be giving us some hunting content. He's not going to be hunting every day. I'm sure Jeff would love to hunt every day, but I don't think Jeff comes from the Walton family, so maybe he's not in a position in life where he can literally hunt every day. But if he could, and he would, I would post content every day, because I feel like John1911 in our, you've got your shooting stuff, you got your milsurp stuff, you got the podcast, we've got the workbench, armor type of work. I feel like the hunting is our weakest area because I'm not really a big hunter. I'd like to do more hunting, but I'm just so busy focusing on other things that if you might get one thing a year. So that's not going to be good. So Jeff has got some pretty interesting stuff, and he's what I would call like a 4-season hunter. It looks like. So I mean, it's spring and he's spring turkey and he's doing, you just have to wait and see. So Jeff and his wife, I'm going to say this, his wife is a very good photographer. So I'm real excited, and I just wanted to mention it again so you guys can, kind of keep an eye out for it when it's coming up on the website. So you expect more hunting content in 2025 now that we're back online. Since it's been a while, and the royal we, have missed some of the drama with the latest of the P320. I guess there was I guess everyone is now using the uncommanded discharge phrase for the 320s. And there was an incident that was caught on film at Achilles Heel Tactical. Now, I never heard of Achilles Heel. I guess whomever this person is in this facility, they're well known or they're respected within certain circles. It's probably more a reflection of me that I don't know who they are. But yeah, I like to make an excuse because I'm busy running my own range. But, he's running a class. I feel like he's in Tennessee. I don't know why. Maybe I've got James Yeager on the brain. But I feel like this Achilles Heel guy is south of us, but, neither here nor there. But the 320 goes off, and we published the video. Everyone had the video. It wasn't, like we were breaking anything or we're special. But what was interesting to me, and this was really enlightening with the 320 is, see, I don't really deal with gun forums. I don't like gun forums. In principle, I like gun forums, but the reality is what happens is it ends up bifurcating itself into, you've got the lowest common denominator people that, their sets of problems, but then you've got your high level posters that, they don't want to deal with the lowest common denominator, and so they just shit on each other. And then there's this, you kind of get this, we're elite, we're the country club members, or we're the vetted members, or the respected members, or whatever, however you want to say this. And then there's, the masses. And some of the masses are honestly just trying to learn, and some of them are trolls, and the whole thing just turns into a shit show. And it's, keep in mind, you got a bunch of people clickety-clacking away on a keyboard that aren't even shooting guns, and they've got these, who came up with this? I just recently heard this. It was the phrase, it was a high opinion, but low, was it high opinion, but low effort? And it was like, I don't know if I would want to be taking gun advice from somebody that posts more comments a month on a gun forum than they do pulling a trigger. So, but anyway, my point is, I'm not exposed to a lot of the thinking or the excuses or the copium, the coping mechanisms, or, the brand, whatever, loyalty arguments about the 320. I mean, I know the technical arguments, but like some of the stuff that that the general populace comes up with, within, like, let's say the pop culture of the gun community, I'm not really familiar with it. But publishing that Achilles Heel video on our Facebook page was enlightening for me, and probably not for most of you, because most of you have seen all this. The amount of people that are, it's beyond denial. It's beyond rationalization. I mean, we're talking like, magic bullet theory, shooter in the grassy knoll, CIA fake moon landing type of arguments that are happening around the SIG P320. People are accusing these videos of being staged and fake, like the moon landing, that, the way it was edited. And then you get these people that, like, then we had this one guy, just, I'm not singling this person out if he's listening to the podcast, but he saw something he didn't like, so he decided to use that as a lever to try to wreck the entire video. And what he didn't like was the instructor at Achilles' heel, whomever this person's name is, being in front of the shooter line. And it's like, well, and you can just tell, it's like, tell me you don't train without telling me you don't train. And so what the Achilles heel situation, I would imagine, I literally never heard of these people, but I've been to a lot of trainings and conducted a lot of trainings. And the concept is what we call it. It's called a hot range. And so, you're shooting outside, you're doing instruction, you've got a primary or secondary instructors, you've got range safety officers, secondary instructors kind of watching a line depending on how many students you've got. And the way these typically work is all the guns are loaded. When you're done, the gun goes in the holster, and basically it's like, we're shooting a drill, we're doing this, we're doing that. Okay, everybody holster up. The instructor steps in front, starts giving some instruction, possibly, showing some stuff dry. Then it's like eyes and ears. He turns and he demonstrates to the class on the line, and they're watching. So then the instructor, he walks forward, and then he's walking back behind the line. And so this person, again, we're talking about a gun that's well known for, at this point, for going off uncommanded. But this guy, he wants to just discredit all of these people because he doesn't understand what he's seeing here, because he's used to, probably going to an indoor gun range, never going downrange or never passing the firing line. And it's just, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And it turns into this giant coping mechanism. And it's really interesting to watch these people. I don't like to tell people that they're wrong, unless there's like, it's just factually something's like, you're making a good point. I'm not disagreeing with your sentiment. However, this fact in your argument is incorrect. Carry on. But watching these guys and how this thing kind of just, these excuses and this theory, and and then it's like, then they're attacking the Achilles heel people, then they're attacking the shooters, and they're attacking, Bruce Gray, and then they're attacking, well, the gun isn't a Legion, like this doesn't happen to the Legion. It's like, oh, well, it turns out this was a Legion gun, or the X5, or whatever they call their guns. And it's hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. And it just never, it's just this, it's like the video of a cat on fire, just panic running around, trying to get away from the drama. And it's just, it's always there. And I was really shocked at how out of control this is. We had predicted, it turns out, it was like a year and a half ago, once the first school resource officer had been shot in a retention holster, it was at a game at school. And then there was one, I think there was one at a football game. Maybe there were two at a football game, but there was definitely one at a school and then one at a football game. And once that happened, I came out publicly and I put my flag down on this. I said, this gun is done. Because now this has crossed over from being what the gun nerds, like people that will listen to this podcast, care about. Like, there's nobody listening to this podcast, probably, that is, I don't know, the superintendent of the local school board, right? In their township. But, now you get cops getting injured with guns on school grounds, which involves police officers, school resource officers, the departments of education, city administrators, and all of a sudden this gun, the gun dork stuff, like my favorite gun, I'm a SIG guy, HK guy, Glock guy, whatever guy, has now morphed into what did you know, when did you know it, and it's liability, and there's people are going to get sued, and what about the kid? We got to do it for the kids. This gun is done. This gun is done. And this is going to keep happening. We've seen Chicago has come out. They just recently, yanked the gun out of service, and they just approved it in 2018, maybe 2017, but 2018. Some various large regional law enforcement training agencies, state agencies in California have kicked the guns out, not only from their ranges but from their academies. Even if they have a student that's a cadet coming in from a police department with a duty gun, that's a 320 that they've issued, they're like, yep, nah, baba, nah, that gun is out of here. They're like, you're going to have to that cadet has to have a new gun. They and you're seeing more and more and more of this. Mongo had sent me an interesting document. It's been going around. It's I couldn't get all of it to open up, but it goes through various incidents, and then it goes in, like, it's got a mechanical section, and then it's got the drop safety stuff, the SEER uncommanded discharge from the SEER thing. But an area that I really zoomed in on is it had a list of issues that have happened with the military. And this is another one of these, cat on fire coping mechanisms that I think a lot of us have, kind of held on to. It's like, well, if we're dealing with military, or we're dealing with people that are going to be using a military gun, or police agencies that are going to probably just use the military gun because they're like, what does the Army do? We're going to use that gun. With the thumb safety, once we started hearing rumors, I can tell you what it was. There's the incident that just did it for me was the Marine in Japan who had a gun go off. He's security forces. I think it was it Yokosuka? Had an M18 go off, and there's security cameras, and I think he was injured, but lightly injured, but he was exonerated. The gun went off, and so this is a thumb safety gun. And it's like, once I started hearing that thumb safety guns are going off, I was like, we're fucking done with these sons of bitches. I mean, like, I just didn't want to hear it. Like, we have people in our orbit, and I've told them that their gun's not allowed on our property. I will let them bring the gun. They can bring a gun. It has to be unloaded. They can step up to the line. They can load it. They can shoot it. And then they have to unload it before they put it in a holster, because I wouldn't mind just, test firing and looking at them. But I don't even want these guns loaded in holsters, chambered on our property, because people, if you've never seen, it's called a tunneling wound. If you've never seen a tunneling wound, where a round, if it goes, it travels, vertically down through your thigh, exit near your knee, if it doesn't do any damage to your knee, and then enters back in, to your calf, and then hopefully it doesn't, blow out do any damage to your foot. Even if you don't really hit any real bone, that is a motherfucker of a goddamn wound. I am telling you, that is just, and I don't want to have to deal with having a casualty evacuate somebody off our property, and then having to deal with all that when it's like, no, we're done. Because I've got the same problem that all the cities have, and all the school boards have, and now all the gun schools are starting to have, which is where I'm going with all of this is, I've come out publicly and said, I've come out publicly and started capping on this gun. And I was not a person that was against the M17 getting getting the Army contract, by the way. I think it was the most qualified. It had all the features that they wanted. But I've come out and I've said there's problems, there's this, there's questions, there's concerns. How can I, in good conscience, come out, say this kind of stuff on our social media, on our podcast, publish it to the website, and then allow somebody with that gun on our property, they get injured, or heaven forbid, it turns into a fatality. They've got, their family, they sue me, and it comes up in court or in interrogatories where, what did you know, Marky, and when did you know it? Because, why didn't you stop person X from using this gun? You had such strong opinions on the gun. You've documented the problems with this gun, all the injuries, the lawsuits. Why, just like, I have to stop it. Well, after Achilles heel had the ND, I guess that got a bunch of people lit up. I guess now some other training facilities are starting to limit the 320 on in their training cycles. This is going to remind many of you of the Black Hawk Serpa issue, where it starts to basically, word gets out, and I have a hard time believing that most people that run training facilities have not heard about the 320 issues, even if they're personally fans of the 320 or they carry the 320. But, once you start hearing other facilities are banning the gun, and now it's Achilles heels ban the gun. There's a gun school not that far from us that is now banning the gun. Tactical Defense Institute. How long until Thunder Ranch? How long until one of the big name schools or all of them start banning this gun, just out of an abundance of caution, and that's where I think a lot of the drama is, because you've got these guys who, they buy a gun, they've kind of got their ego invested in the gun. I've had this gun for 5 years. I never had a problem with it. Maybe shoots 500 rounds a year. There's a problem with the gun. SIG doesn't want to admit there's a problem with the gun. It's becoming more and more